evening and welcome to a very special edition of the Moviescramble podcast. Tonight, as you can hear, it is only just myself, John MacArthur, who is on the podcast, but it's an edition where I am talking to two Glasgow filmmakers, Chris Quick and Andy McEwan, about their short film, Autumn Never Dies. Gentlemen, how the hell are you during this weird lockdown time?
Tired. Frustrated.
Yeah, get the words out of my mouth there.
How's the lockdown been treating you? Have you been busy, or has it caused problems with film making and everything like that?
Well, I suppose we were kind of lucky in the sense that we had a film just at the tail end of post-production. Obviously, we just completed one this year, so we haven't really been interrupted in terms of a filmmaking process because we've pretty much been put into festivals. But obviously it's been a completely different kettle of fish because no festivals have been taking place. It's all been online. So like the one time we thought, oh, this is great, we've got a nice shiny new film to show here, there and everywhere, and then everywhere's shut or not showing it and as a live event. So it's kind of hard to kind of grasp an audience reaction to it at the moment because we don't quite know, who's seen it and what they thought about it. But I'm sure hopefully maybe some festivals towards the end of the year might be able to take place as a live event. We'll maybe get a good interpretation of it then.
Yep, certainly hope so. Obviously we're here tonight to talk about Autumn Never Dies, which is in fact a sequel to a 2012 short film called The Greyness of Autumn.
September, the start of a new month and the dawn of a new season. Autumn is a subtle time of year that sees so much change in the beauty of nature that we never truly stop to take it all in. It highlights the crucial point where nature has reached its peak in the cycle of life and death and must gradually begin the process of irreversible decline. Some refer to this savage act as the greyness of autumn. I always felt there was no real truth in the phrase and dismissed it as nothing but an urban myth. My name is Danny Maguire, and this is my story of how I underestimated the power of a season and ended up paying the ultimate price.
Now, for those of our audience who have not seen The Greyness of Autumn, it is on YouTube for your delectation and it is well worth 13 minutes of your time to go and check this out. Could you let the audience know what The Greyness of Autumn was about and who is actually in it?
Greyness of Autumn is basically it's about a Glasgow ostrich that is really had a bad week. His girlfriend dumps him, he loses his job and he's trying to cope with all the bad news that's affecting him, and he's trying to get through life basically, but he's always up against it. That's basically the gist of it.
Yep, pretty much covers it. Yeah.
Yeah, without giving any spoilers away there.
It's always hard with a short film to try and explain things without kind of because you could say so much of it and then it's like, oh, what's the point of seeing the film now?
I was going to say who's in it. Duncan Ellie James, he voices Danny. Chris voices Nelson. Sorry, I couldn't forget Chris.
Had Amy Watson, who played Katie, and she wasn't in the first one. I'm trying to go back to the first one and remember who's all in the first one. Oh, Neil Francis. Neil Francis playing Barry, Barry Barman.
Yep. Dave Wells. Yeah, I know I'm right.
At the moment, I'm picturing everybody that's in the second one. I'm trying to remember. I know they weren't in the first one.
Dave Wells and Andrew O'Donnell.
Oh yeah, so he was. I forgot he was in it. That's terrible.
All the cast still hear this and be like, raging they don't forgot about me. Yeah, still colourful characters anyway.
Nice. So that was back in 2012 and it was very well received as far as I could tell at the time. Obviously we covered it on the site at the time and it did the various short film festivals and all these sort of things. So from there, obviously you've both had glittering careers since then, but we're now back 2020 and we're here with the sequel, which I really liked the poster for this where it said the sequel to the film you probably didn't see. I had a real good chuckle at that. I thought it's a perfect way to introduce the film, and it's also a good way for people to go back and see the previous one.
Yeah, that's all down to Andy, that one, because we were trying to come up with a tagline for the poster, and Andy just said, why don't we just say it's the sequel to the film you never saw? And it's like, yeah. And sure enough, when it hit its first film festival in Ireland, we actually said to them, oh, did you go back and watch the prequel? And they said, oh, we didn't realise there was a prequel. And I was like, well, there we go, the taglines worked.
So what drew you back to the world of Danny and Nelson? Was it the characters? Was it you had more stories to tell about them? What was it that you thought this will make a good follow-up?
We never really intended to make a sequel, because if you see, obviously, the way the first one ends, you don't think it could go on. And it was really after a few of the screenings where people were coming up to myself and Andy and saying, "Oh, when are you planning to do a sequel?"
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I never really thought about it as a sequel, but Andy started jotting down ideas and kept coming back to me with these ideas, and I was like, "No, we can't do this. It doesn't make sense." But then eventually he came back to me with a script, and I was like, "Okay, this could work." And that's kind of where we kind of thought, right, okay, that now that we see it can continue, how do we then tell another story with the two characters?
What was your starting point then, Andy, for actually developing the characters further than they were in the first film?
I basically knew the story I wanted to tell was basically the Danny finds someone else and is conflicted with his past and his future, and trying not to give spoilers away, but when starting to write it, I was thinking all these crazy ideas that I'm like, no, that, if it was a human, yeah, it would be out there, but it's a puppet. You can kind of stretch it and make it even more bizarre, and everything's fine. So as a starting point, I just wanted Danny to basically have a life choice again, but to be moving on with his life, basically trying to get his life back on track. Everything's going well for him until once again a life choice is thrown in, a spanner in the works, and he has to make a difficult kind of life choice. I think most of us have been there in some way or another, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I did notice that the film was, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but it was a real step up in terms of the production from the first film. Obviously, it was slightly longer. It was around about the 19-20 minute mark, but you managed to cram so much into that 20 minutes, right from the fact that there's a cold opening, which leads directly from the first film. And then you've got this wee title sequence as well, which is like something out of a Bond film, which I really appreciated with Nelson popping up in the middle of that. That was just fantastic. And then obviously the film itself revolves around Danny's visits to a psychiatrist. And from there you jump off into various elements like the speed dating and meeting Lizzie and all this sort of stuff. And I just thought it was really like there was an awful lot of ambition in there, as I said, because you seem to, because you know the characters in terms of filmmakers. Was it easier for you to sort of ramp it up, or was that just something that came naturally anyway?
What do you think, Chris?
I was going to say, obviously, first of all, this one had a budget. The last one didn't. So when you have a bit of money to play with, then yes, you can kind of make things happen a bit. You can give it a bit more of a cinematic feel to it. With this one as well, we knew there was a very good chance that people wouldn't see the first one, so it had to act as a standalone film in its own right. And I think that's where Andy wrote a great structure where it was all, like you say, around the psychiatrist, and it's us finding about Danny. Now, obviously, we already know Danny, but to a new audience, they wouldn't necessarily know about his past and whatnot. So it was kind of nice that it's like we were able to see where Danny was for an old audience, but for this new audience, they could just literally be thrown straight into his life and find it, get the same sense of an appreciation for the story without having seen the first one.
When you talk about a budget, it's been quoted that you actually had £1,350, a grand total to make the film, and it looks as if it was far more than that. I've seen an awful lot of short films that have cost a lot more and looked as if it was made for a lot less. You obviously have a soundtrack in this film as well, all the way through. There's a lot of music in it. Was that something that you were looking to do to get that more cinematic feel even for a short film?
Yeah, I think when it was offered to us, we thought we might as well utilise, it was Ross Campbell, the brother of Duncan Ellie James actually, who composed the theme, and he had offered to us if we ever did a short film, he would quite happily come and compose a soundtrack for us. And straight off the cuff, I think Andy was saying about having a Bond theme, and we loved this idea of a big grand opening and having this spoof Bond theme, but we were starting to get a bit carried away when the opening sequence was going to be about a fifth of the film, or, the equivalent, so we kind of cut it right down and kind of simplified it a bit, and I think kind of what we ended up with works far better than this sort of grand opening that we were originally planning.
Obviously, you've got a larger cast of characters in this film, both human and puppet. It looked as if it was an awful lot of fun to actually bring these characters to life, because they're all fairly unique. You've got the barman and various people that have come in, obviously the drunken crow and this sort of stuff. What was it like actually bringing these sort of new characters in? It looked as if it was quite a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, obviously in the writing process, you're just writing this down. You kind of get a feel of, what you think, these characters are going to be, and then obviously when you see them on, when you get the actor and they get the character, and it's better than you can imagine, like writing it down. Okay, John Gaffney's character with the barman, he had us on the floor, we had readings. It was really fantastic. Alki Crow wasn't even in the script originally. He was part of the Kickstarter video. We done it as a kind of joke. It's basically this crow who was just drunk trying to sell Autumn Never Dies idea for money, and we just kind of laughing. This is a great character. We should bring him back somewhere. I think in the original script, it was Barry the barman was driving Nelson away from the funeral. Spoilers. I mean, we thought, Alki Crow would be perfect there. There's so much more you could write joke-wise in there. So all the little characters, and everyone's different in it, which I really appreciate. It came across well on screen.
Yeah, it's very dark, but it's very, very funny. The jokes it just seems to come one after the other, and it's difficult to keep up with it at times as well, because there's so many jokes, especially Nelson, who I've noticed has got a sort of a larger part in this film. When the first one, he was more of a sort of sidekick role, but here he almost gets equal screen time with Danny. His character obviously is absolutely terrible. He just says what he thinks. Was all that scripted? Did that all come from your mind, Andy, or did Chris have something to do with that as well? Because some of the things he said was completely outrageous.
Yeah, you might have improv one or two things, Chris, but I think I'd wrote most of it down. I mean, after the first one came out and people, a few people had seen it, again, I didn't realise how much people would have liked it, but people were coming up to me and like quoting Nelson lines to me and things like that, and I'm like, right, this is a winner. They're quoting a puppet line back to me. It's a great character, and I was like, it can't be a main character. That just, that would be Ted too much, I think. So he's still got to be, the funny man, the one that's telling the jokes to alleviate Danny's kind of pain. But we knew we had to give him more screen time, because everybody seemed to love that character, and it's basically, let's say, I mean, there was a line that Chris thought it was too far, so there was a few lines that Nelson had to get cut out, but I don't know if I can repeat it on a podcast, so.
It's quite a funny process during the ADR session to try and come up with an equivalent line that still matches the mouth movement of the puppet. It's quite an interesting process, that.
Oh yeah, because I remember I was actually it's not even that offensive. Chris didn't like it. He said, "No, we need to replace this line." And I was in work and I was just laughing at myself, thinking of ridiculous things that Nelson. Basically, the concept of Nelson is he is the friend who just whatever he wants when he wants, and he does not care. So you're just writing things down like, what would someone say in this situation that doesn't care about anything? And there's no no responsibility to anything.
There's no filter either. He just says it as it is.
That's it. And I think I just sent you like a text of like 30 different lines you could say. And I think I kept getting occasionally Chris back going, no, too far, no chance. Yeah, so some of the lines were straight from my brain, which I don't know if I should admit, but yeah, a lot of them were. I think the Caligula one was when you were doing ADR, I think, Chris.
Yes, that was the one.
That was quite a good line. Yeah, that's why you decided on that one.
Nice. Also, without really giving anything away, there is a sex scene in this film which is shown in silhouette, which is absolutely hilarious, I must say. I thought it was particularly well done, and obviously very subtly done, to be age appropriate so it can get shown at all sorts of film festivals. But whose idea was that? Obviously, it would probably come from the writing in the first instance. But how do you work out bringing something like that to screen?
That scene was largely saved by our cinematographer Steve Johnson, because it was supposed to be done for real, with somehow this puppet on top of an actress. But no matter which way we thought about trying it, we just thought this is not going to work. The puppet's too small. It's just going to look really, really weird. And it was Steve that turned around and said, because I was going to cut it right there and then on the day, but he said, let me try something. And then he got his lights out and obviously showed with the puppet in silhouette form. He's like, why don't we do it in silhouettes? And it worked, and we actually probably made a lot cruder than we probably would have got away with if we did it for real, So that scene is pure genius. That is Steve Johnson thinking about doing it as a silhouette.
I noted down something else. I watched the film again today, and I noted down the Transport Museum joke as another highlight. I just thought that was brilliant. Again, it just works so well because it's really unexpected. It's obviously during a reasonably serious moment, and it just goes off on this tangent, which is just fantastic. I was just sitting there really killing myself laughing.
Purely down to Andy's rage at taking his child to the Transport Museum and finding it was absolutely shit.
Is this the new Transport Museum or the old one?
The new one, the Clyde.
Yeah.
Not Clyde, is it?
Yeah.
It's called Clyde. Riverside or something in it. Aye. It's a big shed.
Museum. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Aye. Well, I'm old enough to have gone to the first one, and you could actually get and touch the cars, but I've been to the other one where you can't. As you say, you can't get near anything. Yeah.
Everyone's on a wall.
So your film has been getting a fair amount of recognition since it's been out and about touring the festivals. You've had nominations and wins at very diverse festivals as well, all over the place. I think there was ones in Japan, and obviously it's in competition this week at the Scottish Short Film Festival. I think you're up for, is it Best Script? I think you're up for that one. And obviously you've got various other ones. There's a Welsh festival and everything. It must be quite gratifying to get that sort of feedback from these places, and like just the fact that you're up there and you're getting nominated.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially, after the production was a nightmare. Everything went wrong with it. When it was even talk at one point like maybe we should just shut it down. Maybe we should just end it. It's not meant to be kind of thing. It was really horrific. We don't want to go into great detail about everything that happened, but our original DP had to drop out. We had to recast the main actress. We were ready to reshoot to pick up, and the catch was, if we left Europe that day, we couldn't film. And then Brexit happened, so we didn't have a cameraman to film. I hate you, Nigel Farage, even more than I already did. Thanks. So that shuts down for months, and then we basically had to film the entire film in October. That and that was crazy. And I think one of the scenes was speed dating scene. In fact, every actor and actress in that film, we got a hold of the night before because everyone else dropped out last minute. So it was just complete chaos all the way through it. So to finally see people like it, it's people like it. That's why we make the film, so people laugh and forget how awful life really is.
In terms of the film festivals, it's quite nice that quite a lot of, especially the first one as well, like the first one picked up an award in Australia, which was quite nice that, Australians who maybe don't know or can't pick up on the Glaswegian dialect is obviously a home crowd. It's nice to know that they actually thought that was the best comedy out of all the ones at their festival. And same with it getting to America as well. Like Glaswegian accents really don't translate well in America. But, so far we've obviously got the one in New York coming, and we've entered into a few more. So it's quite nice that places here, there and everywhere seem to get past that language barrier and, enjoy a nice puppet film with extremely crude humour.
Yes. I'd like to touch on the promotion of the film. Obviously, you released a trailer for the film, which has nothing of the film in it. That's quite a bold move.
Yeah. That was
Yep.
that was that's the joke. That's what I totally love about it.
Was it somebody that talked to you at a festival, Andy, that
Yeah.
suggested it?
Basically, it was when we first premiered it at the CCA in Glasgow. You know, people like it, whatever. Done a Q&A and went our separate ways, and it's like a bar there, and everyone was kind of networking and whatnot. I'm not one for networking. I never know what to say to people. Like, I write things down. Like, you know, what you say. So it was one of the. I think it was a guy came up and he said, "Oh, how you doing? What you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a writer, whatever." And he said, "Oh, what did you write?" And I said, "Oh, I made the Green Bottom film." And he said, "Oh my God, hang on a second." He pulled his girlfriend over. He was like, "This is the guy that wrote the film." She said, "Oh my God, it's amazing. Are you going to make a sequel?" So that was the very first person to ever say that. And I'm like, "Oh, no, what?" And without making kind of spoilers to the first one, but she was like, "Oh, well, Nelson could, you know, he could make like Danny a zombie. And he could like terrorize the town and all that, and he could be a ghost. Danny could be a ghost in the second one, and just ridiculous ideas." I was like, okay, sure. But something sparked in my head of the idea, okay, Nelson's going to turn him into a zombie, and he could terrorize the village, and I'm like, that sounds like Frankenstein. So in the back of my head, it was just starting with that idea to go, it would be really funny to do a parody of all the different genres of films when we make a second one. This was obviously right, and then, you know what I mean? And I thought it'd be funny to do a Frankenstein one when it's Nelson is like, you know, it's alive, and then Danny sits up for could parody a horror one and whatnot, and then when I was like, oh, we should parody Air Force One.
Mr. President, why don't you stand up and grace us with your presence? No?
All right.
Listen up, Mr. President. You will call your Minister of Defense and order the immediate release of Dmitry Koskov.
Not a chance, Barbag.
Very well then. Any last request?
Yes, excuse me. I ordered the vegetarian meal, and I've quite clearly been given fish.
Shut up! Mr. President, I'm afraid your term in office is over.
That would be quite funny, and we could film in a plane and, you know, do the emotions and have terror, you know, just make it ridiculous, and then do other ones down the line. But obviously we had no money, so we could only make the one and only trailer, which had nothing to do with the film. But that was the whole joke of it. Like, this is going to do like a big action set piece in a plane, and it's like, yeah, none of that's in there. That was just made up to get you to buy a ticket, really.
Well, it certainly worked anyway.
Well, that's good.
Obviously, with these two films now, and I was having a look on the Wikipedia pages for the film, and there was some comments on there from reviewers saying that this would possibly make a good series, like a short form television series or whatever. Is that something that you've considered, or is it still too fresh for you before like considering something like that?
No, it is something we are considering at the moment. So early days, but yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think the fact that multiple people have come back and said that, I think it's worth exploring. So yeah, no, me and Andy actually met just on Saturday there to obviously start the groundwork of how do we develop this as a potential series, where we've gone from, you know, 2 short films to a possible 6-episode television series, or, you know, 10-episode Netflix series, you know. So yeah, a lot of food for thought, I think.
Yeah, well, there's definitely an audience out there for these sort of things, so don't see why not.
Who'd you pitch to? you get the phone numbers. That's an NBC on the line or something. That's what we'll need. Phone them up.
Oh no, you can't go network. You have to go indie. You have to go. Might as well just go for Amazon. You know, use your Amazon Prime account and just fire something in. You know. So
phone up Amazon.
It'll work, won't it? So obviously, the film is still on the go in terms of festivals. What's the future for it? I take it this isn't the end of it in terms of, I'm just talking about Autumn Never Dies. Is there plans for it to continue on various film festivals? Because there are a number of them out there, obviously all over the world. So is that what your plan is for it?
Yep, I think the last count I saw, I think there's 53 festivals were still entered. So
wow.
it's at least into next year. And with this one, we've decided to go literally here, there, and everywhere. So there's one actually about to declare in a few days' time for Tehran, which we thought that'll be interesting to see what the Iranians make of it. So we've just been trying to find all these random film festivals, like Bratislava Film Festival. It's like one of these ones you would never ever think to throw in a film into a festival. So it'll be interesting to see what comes back.
Nice. So obviously, as well as the autumn films, you guys are fairly prolific in terms of your output over the last, I would say it's about 10, 12 years since you've really started working together in one form or another.
Yeah. 2008 would have been our first one. So yeah.
Yeah. And you obviously have many hats that you wear in terms of productions. Obviously, that's a necessity with short films, but you both seem to have been involved quite heavily in a number of projects. Andy, obviously, you had your own film, Broken Record, which was that 2013, 2014?
Yeah, maybe in 2014, I think.
Yeah.
I think when you shot through it, but yeah, I think it came in 2014.
Again, there's a bit of a continuity there with some of the cast in that film as well, and obviously you were director, and obviously Chris was involved in it. What was it like for yourself being in the director's chair, or is it something that is just part of the process? Do you obviously a director works in collaboration with so many other elements in a film. Did you enjoy the process, and was it something you'd want to go back and do again?
Do you know, I always thought I would like it and want to do it, but that was absolutely stressful and terrifying. So probably not. I know when I'm writing, I can envisage like the shot I would like and whatnot, but I think being the guy that everybody comes to and wants to know what to do is quite overwhelming, and like, I don't know, sure. So probably wouldn't want to return to a directing officially unless somebody threw a lot of money in my way, but I would probably say no to that. But it was an experience, I suppose. I'm trying to think how to finish this sentence here. I mean, it was enjoyable enough seeing at the end, and being able to work with the actual cameraman and whatnot, the DOP and things like that, to try and get the shots I was wanting. But it was just I don't know, I found it overly stressful, and I think after that I kind of fell back in love with just writing and focusing more on that kind of side of it.
Chris, obviously you have done a fair amount of freelance stuff as well, working on the likes of Electric Faces, and there's so many other things. You got a bit of recognition you have over the last couple of years as an editor as well. That must be quite gratifying to get praise and get a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback and for your work in that sort of way. How did you find working for other people in that sort of respect? Was it something that you used as a learning experience, or was it just something that you really enjoy doing?
Well, I studied editing at college. I did post-production at the City of Glasgow College, and yeah, I've always since sort of school, I've always kind of had a passion for editing videos, and I've been very lucky in that sense that when I came out of college as well, my friend Mark Ferguson and I set up a production company, and it just so happened he was a cameraman, I was trained in editing, so it was a perfect match in the sense that he went and did the filming, I did all the editing. So, and yeah, just over the years I've been very lucky to work with so many wonderful and talented people. I enjoy tremendously working with Andy, Johnny Herbin as well, who did Electric Faces and Mountain. And yeah, it's always been a nice kind of experience. It's always different working with other people. Different people have different ways of how they approach things like directing and producing. But yeah, it's been nice. I tend to sometimes, if I can, get out on the film sets as well. But when it does come into post-production, I kind of almost have an advanced feel of the film and like how I know it's going to cut together. And I think I probably take that into directing as well. And it's probably something I focus too heavily on, is the sense that I'm directing a film so that I know it's going to cut well, and probably paying less attention to the likes of the acting, the shot sizes and things like that. So I always feel as if I'm maybe at a downside that I'm too heavily focused on that, and maybe it's better to leave directing to other folk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's understandable. Obviously, you are heavily involved in the Glasgow Filmmakers Alliance. Now, from what I've read about that, it came out of a necessity more than anything else because it was difficult to find the right people and get the right people in touch with each other. And obviously that's been going now for a number of years. And just last year, I believe you took over as the head honcho, the big cheese of the organisation, so to speak. You've obviously been involved in that since the start. What kind of drew you into it in the first place, and how are you taking it forward now that it's all yours?
I think it was when me and Andy were involved in a feature film called In Search of Lachey, and this was on our early days, and we kind of did a feature length film straight after college, which was maybe in hindsight a bit too soon, but it was a great experience. But one of the things we did kind of find was that there was no kind of central place to find everybody. Now, this was obviously before Facebook groups, and Filmbang was about, but Filmbang's website at that time wasn't the easiest to navigate. So myself and Andrew O'Donnell were talking one day, and we said, wouldn't it be good if we came up with a directory where we had everybody both in front of camera and behind camera? And that was essentially the birth of the Glasgow Filmmakers Alliance. And from there, we kind of started to get people together. We started to find people here, there and everywhere across Glasgow that we wouldn't otherwise have known were there. So it was nice to kind of bring people together. And off the back of that, we joined forces with Production Attic, who are a production company through here in Glasgow, to make the Glasgow Creative Networking, which was live networking events to kind of, again, draw people together in collaboration. So that ran for a few years as well, and again, allowed things to grow bigger. And as you were saying, a couple of years ago, Andrew stood down. He was an actor for a very long time, but now he's going on to do other things. So he stood down, and because I was his deputy, I essentially stood into his role. So yeah, it's kind of nice to kind of, now that we're kind of approaching the 10-year mark of the Filmmakers Alliance been going, just to kind of think of new ways we can diversify it and obviously bring it to newer audiences. The fact that obviously every year we churn out so many new people that work in, camera, makeup, essentially, every part that needs every part of a film. So it's kind of nice getting to know the new generation coming through and just trying to introduce them to the database and just showing them how it could work for them.
So that's probably us round about the end. I'd like to note that at the end of Autumn Never Dies, I really liked the shout out to Pat Sharp. I thought that was pretty splendid. Well done, guys.
He retweeted us. That's what it was.
Nice. Oh, good stuff.
I just retweeted him and I was like, I want to give us a retweet, Pat. And then he retweeted and was like, best luck, Andy, with your film. And I thought, right, we need to somehow get a wee shout out to Pat Sharp in there. Because then get tweeted him after the film was out, and I was like, well, the film's out. It's been like 4 years, Pat, but we've done it.
You've obviously touched on that you're still working together, possible future for Danny and all the puppets and the humans associated with the films. Is that your main focus just now, or are there other things on the go as well moving forward?
Well, I think there's a few things in the pipeline. I don't know if you want to keep this secret, Chris. Or...
I wouldn't want you to betray any confidences or anything, or give away any plot details.
Well, one thing we could possibly hint at is that there might be some movement on the Callahan and Horse sequence that appears in Autumn Never Dies being turned into something more substantial. So that's certainly possibly a front runner for next year, or maybe even the tail end of this year, depending on when we could potentially get restarted with filming things.
Well, I look forward to that. I think that'll be particularly good.
Andy, sorry, I was just going to say, Andy usually has like a swathe of crazy ideas. I mean, we've got so many things jotted down, that if we actually sat in a room together and just blasted through a story idea, we probably could come up with quite a few films, which is nice.
I've actually got a fully worked out script for Callahan and Horse. I wanted to make it as a TV kind of web series idea, and I just wrote it down. So I've got 2 fully fleshed out scripts, and that's normally how I work. I just write random stuff down in a script, give it to Chris, and go, what do you think? He'll come back, usual notes, this, that, make these jokes, and it just seemed to meld really well, and it always seems to work out. Hopefully we can make an 80s action cop show drama That would be hilarious.
Nice, that sounds brilliant. So, have you guys managed to get back to the cinemas since things have opened up again, or is it still too early?
Not
I
really,
think they're
because
just
they're just kind of showing older films at the moment, which I can understand for a sort of nostalgic kind of point of view. But there's nothing that's really kind of enticed me. I don't know about you, Andy, if there's anything you've seen or plan to see.
No, well, I wouldn't have mind seeing Bill and Ted's Face the Music right now, but I'm not really that desperate to get back to the cinema when I see it right now.
I think that's only just out this week, or is it next week it's out? So
Is it
something to
now?
look
I
forward
know, I
to.
know. But yeah,
I think
if I get
I think the only thing that's probably intriguing is the Bond film that's due out. But apart from that, I don't think there's anything that would drag me into a cinema.
Yeah, I've been a couple of times and it's a very, very strange experience. Just the social distancing and everything seems to work okay. And I was speaking to somebody at the Odeon and they say they run at a maximum of 22% of capacity for any one screening. So you can imagine even a sold out show will feel like a wet Tuesday afternoon at the cinema. It's very bizarre. But it's okay if you turn up in time. I went to see Tenet and turned up just before it was due to start, so the lights were down. I had real trouble trying to find my seat and make sure I was 3 seats away from everybody else that was sitting about. So that was quite fun. But I'm a bit like yourself. I'm a bit reticent about going back, and there's not that much on the go at the moment anyway. So, but that's all going to change, I think, over the next month or so, as long as the whole country doesn't go back into lockdown. But we just can't tell, I suppose. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been a real pleasure talking to both of you, and just to reiterate that I absolutely loved Autumn Never Dies. I thought it was a fantastic movie, and I can't wait to see what you're doing next. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
thanks for having us.